Welcome to the Taylor Ranch Library feature of the Poets in the Library series. My name is Mary Oishi. I am the Poet Laureate of Albuquerque. And this series is to highlight all of the wonderful poets who live throughout the city, as well as our great public library system. It's just really fabulous, and we're so happy to be able to present it to you, both the poets and the libraries. Our featured poet today is Scott Wigerman. He has been an Albuquerque resident for 6 years after moving from Austin. He is the author of 3 books of poetry, Leaf and Beak, Sonnets, Presents, and Vegetables and Other Relationships. And he's the editor of several volumes, including Wing Beats, Exercises and Practice in Poetry, Bearing the Mask, and 22 Poems and a Prayer for El Paso, winner of the 2020 New Mexico-Arizona Book Award. Poems have appeared recently in Rogue Agent, Impossible Archetype, Shot Glass Journal, Literature Today, and numerous haiku journals. In April, he will be inducted into the prestigious Texas Institute of Letters for his contributions to writing during his 35 years in Texas. In Albuquerque, he chairs the largest chapter of the New Mexico State Poetry Society, and he co-directs the annual Poets Picnic in the Open Space Visitors Center. It is my great pleasure to introduce today's featured poet, Scott Wigerman.
Hello, I'm Scott Wigerman. I'm a poet that lives just up the hill off Unser here on the Mesa, and I'm very, very pleased to be featured today on the Taylor Ranch, which is my library anyway, and I'm going to read a few poems for you, and we'll see how that goes. I'm going to start older to newer. So here's an older one from my first book. Being human. When I hold you, it's not to make a political statement. When my hand rests warmly in yours, it's not to prove a point to the world. The world fades far in the background, fizzles to white noise when I'm with you. My kisses have no hidden agenda. I am just a man in love with another human being who happens to be a man. That's a short one. And that man I was talking about, he and I just celebrated our 24th year together as of Sunday. So I am going to read a poem about our very first date from my second book, and it's called The Interview Date. Where are you from? What I wanted was to watch you speak. See the pink raft of tongue lap at your lips, the beacon of Adam's apple beckon up and down. How long have you lived here? What I wanted was to watch you lean in, observe the swells of hair eddying from your shirt, the surge of nipples hard as a rocky coast. Where did you go to school? What I wanted was to watch you stand, gauge the strain of your anchor, note the cove of buttocks, lean as the Strait of Gibraltar, a tight figure 8. What do you do for fun? What I wanted was to leave the coffee shop, shuck you like an oyster, raise your mast, unfurl your sails, ride you into the night. But that would wait till the second date. I have had a lot of, like any gay person problems with prejudice. But in my case, I would have to say that most of it has been from the family I married into, all Texans. And that might tell you something here. Here's an example. Family wills. On several occasions, I shook his hand with its two missing fingers like grasping a claw. But these times were few, perhaps once a year when your sons are in Texas and you arrange for them to see their grandfather. Never as public as weddings or funerals or other extended family gatherings where I am neither invited nor allowed. We meet halfway in neutral San Antonio at a Mexican restaurant where your father knows the owners, like his father did before him. Jacala's is rigged with history against me. We always arrive late, which gives him time to liquor up on tequila, only the premium kind. The seating has been arranged in advance. Grandfather and grandsons at one end of the table, you and your brothers buffered in the middle, your sister and me at the other end. Depression descends like a black mantilla, and I bide time through each drawn-out joke, which I swear are the same ones he stupefied us with at last summer's meal. Everyone laughs because everyone knows exactly what the old man expects. But he never expected a gay son who would leave a wife and 2 children, and he never expected me. He has never stepped foot in our house. After I answered the phone one time, he also stopped the occasional call. Years later, "Hi, how are you?" is still an effort. He looks directly through me like I'm an empty seat at the end of the table. The Tex-Mex platter, dun colored and greasy, is a reminder I should have stayed home. I've only seen photographs of the farm where he lost his fingers in an accident, machinery fallow and rusting near the barn. This time I am home, sick for a week and pissed that you've driven 3.5 hours to attend the annual Christmas gathering, that you've chosen them over me. I find out later that a cousin asked about me, but the rest of the family went on pretending you are straight and single. Or do they still think of you as married? You should have been back by now, so I brood. Your death looming like a bright red poppy. Cruel as your father, I decide your ashes will be scattered in a hill country field before I ever let him know what's happened. Fear of heights. It starts with a jolt, a raw metallic creak before it lurches upward in a labor of physics. The cables, overgrown clotheslines, don't look like they could handle a load of 40 tourists. Yet in the crush of a cabin surrounded by glass, we slowly ascend on the tram's giant pulley. Despite the twilight, I can still make out the brown-red granite of boulders below, the stern veneer of weathered cliffs, spires and pinnacles eroding above the canyon, their size put into perspective only by pine trees, enormous but dwarfed by the mass of the sandias. In the pit of my stomach, something contracts, and my grip instinctively tightens on the rail. Years earlier, panic ensued when I was suspended at the top of a Ferris wheel. No seatbelts then. Legs dangling in the air like a marionette, ears attuned to each axle's every squeal. A single bar of metal, all that held me from free fall. I hover far higher above the ground now, but I trust in ways that I could not then. I shut my eyes, inhale the naked mountain air, let it channel deeply throughout my body. Then I open them to the ethereal sight of a desert floor coming alive with light, my hands grasping for nothing. And I'm going to move on to my most recent book, which is a collection of sonnets. And I'm going to finish, I believe, with this last sonnet. It's called Formations. A quiet field of punctuation marks becomes a murmuration. First, the lift, despite a brutal wind, and then the shift across the sky from right to left in arcs that sail in folds, 100 wings as one, apostrophes in sync, an aerial display of feathers, beaks, and last, a pull back down to earth, this sudden dance undone. Our lungs inflate. Our breathing bellows cells in movement, rising, falling. That's a fact. My own heart murmurs, beats its wings the same direction, over, casts its spells, abandons them, and so expand, contract. It's how the world began, how we became. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And now, to talk about the Taylor Ranch Library, we have Leanne Wilmot. She is the children's librarian here. Please welcome Leanne Wilmot.
Hello, I'm Leanne Wilmot, the children's librarian here at Taylor Ranch Library. Prior to 1989, the old Taylor Ranch Library was located at 1401 Montano in an 1,100 square foot building. That's smaller than most people's homes. In November of 1989, the new, nearly 14,000 square foot Taylor Ranch Library, one of the first City of Albuquerque locations to offer Wi-Fi service, opened its doors. Our library offers a peaceful, panoramic, and just gorgeous view of the Sandia Mountains. We are fortunate to share a location with the Santa Fe Village Playground, family walking trails, and a well-used dog park. Our library provides 24 adult and 4 children's public use computers. Our customers have access to nearly 15,000 circulating titles on our shelves. In 2019, customers borrowed more than 111,000 fiction titles, 50,000 nonfiction titles, audiobooks, DVDs, and music CDs. Taylor Ranch reference librarians offer personalized genealogical reference help, and customers can join our lively book discussion groups. Patrons enjoy getting creative at our monthly Crafting for Families, too. We have 3 weekly children's story time, knitting clubs, and Lego clubs, and more. Many Taylor Ranch patrons first experienced our library when they themselves attended our children's story times. Those children grew up and brought their own children to story time too, and now these grandparents visit us with their adult children, who in turn bring their children to story time. We hear sweet and inspiring stories of library adventures that span 3 and 4 generations. You can visit the Taylor Ranch Library 7 days a week. And as we return to our normal activities, we look forward to seeing you here.
And now we're going to go indoors and feature the community poets who live in the vicinity of the Taylor Ranch Library. So here we are indoors doing the community poets segment of the Taylor Ranch Library feature. We are going to start today with Lou Simelore. Lou has been a regular performer at open mics, especially Fixed and Free and Cactus Brewery. His heart was filled when a haiku of his was inscribed into calligraphy by Escribiente and hung from a lovely tree at the Open Space Center in 2020. He is also a part-time student of the Mythic Major of Esoterics at the University of New Mexico. Please welcome Lou Simelore.
Thank you, Mary. This poem is my most recent. It's entitled Spring 2021. Spring 2021. Shoots from the dark, cold earth, out of the brown garden soil, the seeds of bulbs placed months ago. A bounty of beauty from both of our back and front yards. Those precious shoots, a sign of approaching life. As are the industrious sparrows, feverishly building new nests from the spaces between the red tiles of my roof. They hang below my second-story window. Soon I'll enter the backyard garden and deposit manure and peat to plant in the empty spaces alongside the precious row of the shooting bulbs that will turn magically into paper white narcissus, mixing new dirt with old, hoping to create an alchemic blend that will provide a nurturing bed of sustenance for fruits and vegetables to lie in. A release into new life, to thrive and provide beauty and nourishment into our lives. Winter is moving on, spring is approaching, and I'm blessed to move now in the flow of Tao with the seasons, away from a dark winter and into the miraculous hope of the naturally recurring spring. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. Now we're moving on to our next community poet, Kelly Brocklehurst. Kelly Brocklehurst has had her poetry published in Conception Southwest and the Oklahoman Review. This is her first time reading her work in public. She has been writing poetry for 17 years, and when she's not writing poetry, she can be found reading, watching, and writing as much horror as possible, and pursuing other hobbies such as embroidery and photography and watching basketball. Please welcome Kelly Brocklehurst.
Thank you, Mary. I'm reading 2 poems today. The first is titled Macrocosm. 1. Sometimes when I leave work, the bookshelves I usually walk past without noticing become sharp in my mind, all wooden angles, and through the glass door of the emergency exit, I see the blue awnings of the Catholic school across the street, and I think, this will all be gone someday. Maybe it will take 100 years for these 2 buildings to crumble into dust, or 1,000, taking the echo of our footsteps with them until something new takes their place. In 1 billion years, it will all be gone, eclipsed by the sun. 2. I am terrified of knowing that someday the last person who will remember me will die too, and it will be like I never existed. 3. What will happen when the sun finally expands so close to the earth that it swallows it whole? I've always thought of the universe as fixed in its place, but everything keeps expanding, breathing, shifting, so slightly we don't notice. What will it look like after it's outlived us? My second poem is titled The Last Time I Saw You. The last time I saw you was over a year ago. The 4th of July, you were smoking on a porch swing in your rundown front yard. I didn't visit you in the hospital, still weary from the previous death 9 years before. The last time I saw you was over a year ago. Maybe it's easy to forget you're gone because in my mind, you're still invincible, laughing on a porch swing in your rundown front yard. Even with the reminders everywhere, the blanket you knitted, pottery you made, you slip away. The last time I saw you was over a year ago. When the thoughts are all consuming, they look like this. You'll never read another Stephen King book sitting on a porch swing in your rundown front yard. I don't know what to do with your absence, how to think about you in any terms other than all the things you're missing. The last time I saw you was over a year ago, watching fireworks on a porch swing in your rundown front yard. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. The next poet is David Meisten, a pushcart honoree with a personal essay in Pushcart Prize 42. David Meisten is the author of Anyone's Son, a winner of the John A. Robertson Award for Best First Book of Poetry from the Texas Institute of Letters. Meisten lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico, with his husband and fellow poet, Scott Wigerman. Please welcome David Meisten.
Thank you, Mary, and thanks for having me today. I'm going to read one poem, and this is from the book that Mary mentioned in my introduction, Anyone's Son. It's called Self-Portrait, age 14. David carried a baritone horn in marching band, its brass tubing a conduit for the breath saved up inside. His instrument among the piled cases at the back of the bus, an old bus, worn out shocks, a 2-lane farm-to-market road, destination Benavides, Bruni, Mirando City, little towns out there in the brush, out there somewhere southwest of Alice and down toward the Rio Grande for the Friday night game. Football. Its muddled movements mystified him, scoreboard numbers spiking in random increments. He turned to the first chair trumpet once. So, is defense when our guys have the ball and we're protecting the ball from the other team? Already, he wasn't listening, didn't care, was here for halftime, for March Grandioso and the ride home, stopping at a wide spot for food. The band director claimed David had a hollow leg, wolfed what he ordered, scavenged leftovers from plates going cold, shrimp tails included, crunchy as the best potato chips, went down smooth with bottled tartar sauce, iceberg lettuce doused in Thousand Island, iced tea with sugar and lemon, filling him up for the bus back home. The lulling dark, voices burbling up out of quiet, the slumped stillness of sleeping others, little pockets of surrender muffling the rumble of engine, tires, asphalt. Time and movement would take this all away, though he didn't know it yet. Wrapped in darkness, watching the headlights, the blurry borders of what could be seen, this little sphere of roadway and bar ditches and barbed wire fencing, of prickly pear and cenizo and huisach, passing at the margins of vision, then gone. Thank you.
Thank you, David. It was so full of imagery. Thank you. And next we have Jesse Erenberg. Jesse Erenberg's poems have been published in multiple local anthologies. His book, Surprise, won several prizes in the New Mexico Press Women Contest and a silver award in the inaugural Margaret Randall Poetry Book Contest. Please welcome Jesse Erenberg.
Thank you very much. I'm going to start with a poem about the pandemic, and hopefully this poem will someday just be a curiosity. It's called In the Time of the Great Pandemic. Like Bedouins lost in a sandstorm, we brave contamination to stand, faces covered, vaguely recognizable, outside a friend's house, where, behind a picture window, a family capers and jests like monkeys in a zoo, while we, both audience and play, wave and yell, doing our own pantomime for their amusement. All of us now sharing the same realization that though we may be caged separately, we are all still part of the same circus we call the human race. My next poem is called The Cat and I have seen the full moon like a ghost in the daytime and watched as it traveled across the sky. And I could feel myself turning with the earth and wondered at the miracle of me standing on this planet in this universe that we can only pretend to understand. And I have turned and looked around and seen the cat sitting in the yard, her eyes bright with thought, as she looked around and reflected on her world. And I can see no difference between us at all. And my last poem is called The Wolves. The wolves move in silence through the dark of the woods, quiet as death, graceful, muscles rippling under fur, smooth and bright as quicksilver reflecting the moonlight. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Our next poet is Elizabeth Berry. Elizabeth Berry is a 75-year-old radical feminist lesbian, social justice activist, daughter, sister, mother, grandmother, and retired RN nursing education administrator. She has been reading and enjoying poetry most of her life and has performed other people's poetry in front of large audiences. But this is one of a handful of times she has ever read her own writing in public. Please welcome Elizabeth Berry.
This is a love poem. Thank God for this day, for you, for the blue, blue sky and white, white snow with long morning shadows. Take me to the country, woman. Take me home. Take me to the mountaintop. Show me the stars in the black, black night. Show me the bare winter trees that stand glorious in their stark, naked strength, wintering, not needing to be clothed in their spring green or autumn fiery finery to be beautiful to the eye, but their bare limbs reaching, embracing the sky. Bring me back then to the water and the city. Bring me home, where love occurs amidst the weave of work and family and friends, sorrow and joy, laughter, tears, holy helpless fury, and hope. Thank God for this day, this night, for you.
Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. Our last poet is Paula Fisher. Paula Fisher is a 69-year-old lesbian, retired electrician, and college administrator, activist. This is her first poem ever read in public in 2018. She attended a poetry writing workshop at Ghost Ranch in 2018. Please welcome Paula Fisher.
Thank you. Who are we? We are daughters, mothers, grandmothers, aunties, sisters, wives, partners, sweethearts, lovers. We are librarians, tradeswomen, nurses, veterans, doctors, therapists, administrators, educators, volunteers, taxi drivers, retired, working, and unemployed. We are dykes, butches, femmes, goddesses, feminist and queer. Woman, hear me roar. We are Jews, Christians, agnostics, atheists, Buddhists, witches, Unitarians, searching and not. Our skin is saggy, soft, black, brown, olive, white, splotchy, wrinkled, and thin. We walk, wheel, limp, strut, dance, laugh, and leak. We are adventurers, athletes, artists, poets, singers, photographers, songwriters, readers, lovers of animals. We are compassionate, angry, caring, loving, supportive, tolerant, recovering, and militant. We are bold, bright, and courageous. We are beautiful old lesbians.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
And that concludes the Taylor Ranch Library feature of the Poets in the Library series. I encourage you to contact me to sign up for your neighborhood library. We have many libraries to go throughout the city of Albuquerque. You can reach me at abqpoetlaureateprogram@gmail.com. That's abqpoetlaureateprogram@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching, and do tune in for another edition at another library about a month from now, and tell your friends.